Hey everyone, welcome back. And for those that are new, welcome to the channel. This is Bad Boogl, and in this video, we're going to talk about slumps. So, I have a few definitions of slumps here, and mine isn't necessarily the same as these. It's a little different. These are good for describing the experience that advanced players or experts have, but they kind of miss something with novices, and you may or may not agree, but I think we should change the definition just slightly for our purposes. So, others have described slumps as an unexpected, prolonged decrease in performance, or an unexplained decline in performance from a previously determined baseline level. Here's what I think. So, first, we should look at what the baseline sort of progression should look like for someone given any sort of learning task. This is the average of what you'll see. It's sort of an idealized picture of it, but it's pretty much the average of what you would see in somebody's learning of any task. As you can see, when you look at the earlier portion of the learning, the slope is very steep. There's a lot of learning going on in not very much time. And then as you get further out in time, as you've spent more time practicing whatever this is, it's Rocket League in our case, obviously. Once you get further out in time, the progression slows down a lot. Here's an example of what a typical slump looks like. There's this initial decline, and then this lower level continues for a period of time, this lower level of performance. Here is an example of a slump during a novice period. So, they're making a lot of progress, and then all of a sudden they see this dip in progress and this sustained loss. And I think this is a little weird. It's definitely possible, but this is a really sharp turn in the slope. So if we look at something like this, this is what it would look like if they hit a plateau that was also a slump. And I think the definition should include things like this because the sharp change in slope. This is definitely a sharp change in what they expected for their level of progress. If something like this happens to you, you should definitely be trying to think about what might be going wrong, because it definitely looks like something is going wrong. And I'd also like to point out that it's important to note, or it might be important to note, that specific skills can be in a slump. So you might be experiencing a dribbling slump or an aerial slump. For some reason, you can do everything else, but you just can't do these specific tasks for a while, or you can't do them as well as you did before anyway. Slumps can be caused by all sorts of things. There's definitely no one cause. We can't just point to this one cause and be like, oh, well, have you tried this? That's what causes slumps, so it's just not the case. However, we can definitely narrow down the list to the things that are the most probable, the things that are probably causing the problem. And the easiest way to do this is to realize that, you are a person and you have a brain, and that does your thinking, and the brain is influenced by lots of things, anxiety, stress, whatever. And the easiest way for us to look at what might be causing any sort of psychological disturbance is this sort of basic needs test. And I just stole this list of basic needs from what's called the Care Dependency Scale. It's an international measure of sort of people's needs being met in various countries. That's not the point, though. The point is just that we needed a list of basic needs for people, and this is where I grabbed it. All right, let's try to go through this list quickly, but I'm sure we'll get distracted along the way. So there's eating and drinking. Of course, these are very basic biological needs. You need to eat and drink. Then there's continence, so being able to control things in your body that you don't want to happen, so being able to control your bladder and your bowel movements, which is important. You might not realize it, or you might take it for granted, but it's definitely important. Then there's mobility, and this is kind of the counterpart to continence. This is actively being able to control your body, so being able to do what you want to do. Next up on the list, we've got body posture. And of course, this is important. You don't want to be in some sort of uncomfortable position for a long time and then have recurring aches and pains. And it definitely becomes sort of a habit to stay in certain postures. So this one's very important. You don't want to be having some sort of bad posture while you're playing the game, because it will develop as a habit, kind of integrate itself into all of the things that you do while you're playing, and it can really become a nuisance. So keep good body posture. I have a problem with this and I need to fix it. So take my word for it. Keep good body posture. Then there is the day-night pattern. So getting good sleep and sleeping at the right times and waking up at the right times. So not necessarily right times, but consistent times. I don't know much about the science of sleep and how it affects your psychological well-being. I just know that you're supposed to get quite a bit of sleep. Okay, next, clothing. And this one's only important if you're in some sort of situation of poverty, probably. This is a basic needs test. People need clothing. You're probably not worried about it. Body temperature. This one probably does affect you, and it's somewhat related to clothing. So if it's cold, wear a sweatshirt, obviously. But try to control the temperature of whatever your environment is so that you can not have kind of cold hands that are stiff or warm hands that are sweaty. Try to find somewhere where you're comfortable. Next up is hygiene, and this one's probably for your basic psychological well-being. You want to be clean. Please shower. Next on the list is avoiding danger, and this one's fairly obvious. You don't want to be worried about some sort of threat to your safety while you're playing the game. After that, we have communication, and this goes hand in hand with the one that comes after that, which is connection with others. So communicating and contacting with others or connecting with others, they're both about creating this sort of stability as far as social things go in your life, having a sort of anchor and being able to have a shoulder to lean on. Then we have a sense of standards and values. And this is important for, having some sort of direction in life, knowing who you are and what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, and where you want to go. And I know that's a very hard thing to know, so try not to worry about that too much, but definitely do consider your values and what you stand for, what you're about, what makes you you, and what makes you different from other people. Then we have daily activities and recreational activities. And Rocket League is probably part of these, but you also want to be doing things like taking walks and, maybe going out every once in a while. Just regular things that can make you feel more normal and more connected with the world. And lastly, we have learning ability. And this one's more about your access to information and being able to explore the things that you want to explore, being able to find out about stuff that interests you. Just to cover all of my bases, I also made a Reddit post asking about slumps and discussing the causes of them. So these are the things I said you should ask yourself. Have you started to become too comfortable? Are you getting too comfortable that things are sort of just becoming habit and you're not really there? You're not thinking about things. And are you confident that you can get better? Are you really believing that you're able to develop the skill, or are you just hoping that time will do its work? Are you focused on winning or getting better? And for those that are playing in a tournament or something, obviously you want to focus on winning. But for a vast majority of your gameplay, you should be focused on trying to get better, because that's what's important. You want to perform well in the future. You do that by getting better. You don't do that by winning. Have you made any small changes? So like maybe check your distance to the monitor, check your posture. Maybe there's something weird about how you're sitting. Just check all the little things like that. Have you had any recent bad news? Because some sort of psychological distress is likely to impact your performance. You're probably not going to be playing as well if maybe a relative is dying or somebody is sick. Are you avoiding negative feelings? Are you avoiding, feeling bad about the game? Are you avoiding the game because you feel bad about it? Are you avoiding 1v1s because they're scary? Things like that. are you letting your emotions somewhat influence your decisions, at least in a negative way? Because positively, that's good. Are you avoiding challenging situations? So these go somewhat hand in hand. Challenging situations often cause you to become somewhat afraid, and that's often a negative feeling that you're going to want to avoid. So, as far as what other people posted, we've got tilt. And I can't believe I didn't put this in my original post, but tilt is probably very important if you're on a losing streak and you're feeling like you can't control your emotions. I know it feels automatic to queue. You want to queue. Things have to go your way eventually. That's what it feels like. It's really hard to stop, but when you're tilted, take a break. If you can somehow force yourself to take a break, take a break. That's all I can really say about that. Alertness. And a lot goes into this one, and we're going to talk about it more when we talk about mindfulness as an intervention for slumps at the end of this video. But look at things like sleep, stress, distractions. There's really a whole lot of things that can be influencing our alertness and our attention. Comfort and satisfaction. So making sure there aren't any sort of wants that are pulling your attention another way. Making sure you've eaten recently. If you've got like an errand to run, do that. That type of thing. Just making sure you're ready to play and ready to focus. Intoxication. Chemicals are going to influence how you perform. So getting drunk, you may be less inhibited, but you also might have less motor control. Generally, I guess if you forget you're drunk, that might cause your slump. But you'd have to be drunk a lot and somehow forget that, like, oh, I'm drunk all the time. That's why I'm playing bad. It's a little much. But then there's being reactive versus being active. And this was kind of suggested in the comments, and then I kind of maybe came to the conclusion by looking at the comments. Preventing a disaster rather than trying to gain a success is going to lead to different perceptions, a different understanding of how the things are going to play into your desires and your scheme for how you're going to accomplish stuff. So if you're focused on preventing disaster, that's an entirely different chain of actions than trying to promote success. And that's something that's a little confusing or maybe a little abstract, but trying to focus not on avoiding the loss, but try to focus on how to get the win. All right, everyone, that's it for slumps. I know I was going to talk about mindfulness in this video, or I said I was going to, but it's starting to run a little long, so I'm sorry about that, but we can't get to it in this video. It's going to be in its own standalone video. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you'd like a way to show your support, I've now started a Patreon. I just started it like the other night so that I can do my research uninhibited and spend more time making videos without being distracted by other stuff. That's one way to do it. Of course, one of the best ways to support is also by subscribing and liking the videos, trying to share them, or just trying to help me get the word out about what I'm trying to do here. So thank you for watching. One last word. I always forget to mention this, but I have a Discord where I make announcements about if I make a post on Reddit trying to find something out, or if I find an interesting research article, or basically I'm wondering about anything, or maybe you want to ask questions. But I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video. But I've forgotten so many times to mention that, so I definitely have to mention that here. Thank you again for watching. Peace. For real this time.